So everything went really bad last time, but more bad times. But since it's technically a side thing, so yay.
Man, this is the world without the California raisins.
So,
Where the raisins have gone evil.
so I didn't have like more than 9/10 of a picosecond to mention at the end of last part, so I didn't. But I really hate the meaningful haircut trope.
Why is that?
There are several reasons, and I'll outline them for you here in this video expose on why meaningful haircuts.
We're getting
are
straight
dumb.
up. We're getting straight up 2009 ranting. Continue.
By all means.
Okay, alright, so the meaningful haircut trope, the whole deal with it is that, like, okay, the girl is sacrificing her femininity for, like, the quest, right? But, okay,
Not
if she
always.
Not
always.
Not the original real life.
It can be written like that, but it depends on if it's usually the trope is that they changed as a person, and they symbolize this change by changing their outside
Yeah,
too.
it can definitely be what you're
Okay,
classifying
I might be
it as,
like,
but I also like to think of it as them shedding off their previous.
okay,
image.
my perspective on it might be somewhat skewed by the fact that I first encountered it in Wild Arms 1, and it was definitely what I just described, because Cecilia did not change as a person. She just cut her hair to be practical because she was going adventuring on purpose.
And my immediate thought is Garnet in Final Fantasy IX, where her meaningful haircut was her shedding away her previous image and becoming more of a stronger individual.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Also,
usually
okay,
kind of
but
what
you
they
know
go
what?
for.
Also, in Japan, it also for a lot of girls signifies getting over a breakup.
What?
It's a dating.
That
thing. It's a dating culture thing there.
Makes no sense. But
Well, it doesn't make
You know-
sense to us.
but you know,
No, it makes sense. A lot of people, if you cut your hair, it kind of shows a whoa frame rate, like an emotional change, like you're starting a new part in your life. And if you got over like a really bad breakup, I
okay,
could see that.
but you know, there are two things that piss me off about the version of it that I was talking about. One is that in real life, if someone with long hair wants to be practical for the purposes of doing something physical, like, say, fighting in the UFC, they don't need to cut off all their hair, they just need to tie it up, because that's how hair works. The other thing, though, is that the whole meaningful haircut thing would be, like, loads more meaningful if anime didn't, like, grossly underestimate the amount of time it takes to grow it back. Because you're not growing it all back in less than a year. I'm sorry, anime, it's not happening. So stop doing that.
You hear that, Yuna? It's just not possible.
It is not possible, okay? You grow, like, what was the number? The number in my head is like 6 inches a year on average.
maybe it depends. It also depends on your age and
Yeah,
other things
yeah.
like
That
that.
accent.
6.
If I were to chop my hair off right now, like completely bald, it would probably take 2-3 years for it to get back to this length, if not more. So
Let's do it for science.
no, I will fight you.
And you know, this came up fairly recently for me, the length of time it takes to grow back hair, because you know Naoto Shirogane from Persona 4, right? The detective who has like really short hair and is disguised as a boy at first. There's a light novel, not very well received light novel, I should stress, that is supposed to take place like a year after Persona 4, and her hair is just down to her butt at that point. And I'm like, no, it's been a year. That's not happening unless you're wearing extensions. And that Naoto is the last person on the planet who would ever wear extensions. So basically, I guess the writer just didn't give a damn.
Look, there's two options here. You could either A, honor the character and how they're being portrayed in previous works, or B, fan service long hair shot.
It was probably that latter one, because light novels don't really care. It wasn't a very well received book, so I am hardly the only person on the planet who noticed that. How do you pronounce this? I hate it when Japanese titles use English in weird ways like this, but Detective Naoto or something.
Detective Cross Naoto.
Something
probably.
like that, yeah.
Can we talk about that for a moment? Because the letter X is not the word cross, and anybody who says that it is
actually,
is wrong.
it kind of is in, like, British. They would call it
Oh.
cross. Like, the Harry Potter button. It's button. The
Harry Potter.
the Harry Potter game.
Oh, you press the Harry
The
Potter
Harry
button.
Potter,
Bitch,
the
I'm
Harry
ready to go on
Potter
a
on
20-minute
the Harry
tangent.
Potter game on PlayStation 1, and all of the tutorials called it the cross button. Every single tutorial called it the cross button because that's what it was. It was the cross button. So
Okay,
yeah,
yeah, but they also
yeah, I
called
think
it the
that- not
Philosopher's
even-
Stone, like
Not even. Well, that's what
it
that's
was
what
the
though.
Philosopher's
Yeah,
Stone.
it
We
was.
called it the Sorcerer's
Yeah.
Stone because Scholastic
but-
thought people wouldn't know what a philosopher was.
what's a philosopher?
Exactly.
It's a guy who thinks really hard about things for most of his life and expects to get paid for it.
Well,
Look, if nobody else is doing
Okay,
it, I think we
okay.
could use a few more people being paid to
okay.
think in our current
To be fair to all philosophers, okay, philosophers were generally a thing that happened when the world's smart people were expected to work directly at universities and to work very, very selflessly, which was also what scientists used to do before they became corporatized. So, yeah, I would go into that more deeply, but I would just be repeating the rant at the beginning of the Jurassic Park novel if I did, so that would be redundant. Not.
What if I never read the Jurassic Park
Then you
novel?
should read it. It's a really good book.
Okay, so I haven't read it for myself, but my mom did, and she hated it. Maybe it's because she watched the movie first, but she thought
She
it was
wanted
very
more. She wanted
boring.
more. She wanted more action stuff.
No, it's not even just that, but she thought it was very dense.
It is
and
very
just
dense,
not
yeah.
enjoyable.
It's supposed to be more scientific, yes.
Yeah, it's a lot more dense and a lot more involved, but at the same time, it's a lot more interesting because you find out a lot more about the park. So, I recommend reading it. Very much so.
This is also just me, but even though I do advocate for that people should generally read more, I also think that a lot of the time the adage that the book is better than the movie is sometimes a little bit disingenuous because you really can't compare a book and a
Oh
movie
yeah,
most
I
of
would
the
say
time.
so. I wouldn't say that either one is better than the other, really. But at the same time, Steven Spielberg very transparently simplified a lot of characters. Like, okay, the lawyer.
Well, you have to a little bit when you're stuck to a
Well, yes,
short
a little
form
bit, but
medium.
I was actually going to describe exactly what he did. So give me half a second. Okay, so Muldoon, the guy with the hat who gets killed by the raptor, clever girl, that guy, is basically just the same character he did for Jaws, who also got killed in Jaws. In the book, he's like
Clever shark.
in the book, Muldoon is not super complicated. He has a more of a complex role, but he's not a super complicated character. He actually gets things done, is the thing. The lawyer, Gennaro, in the movie is basically another character entirely. And by another character entirely, I mean he's basically another character from the book called... what was his name? The first name that popped into my head was Eddie, but that's someone from the Lost World.
Is that character in the movie?
Okay, this is awkward. In both the Lost World, in both the Lost World and in Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg had this habit of combining two characters into one simpler character.
Well, that happens a lot in film, just so that you can.
Yeah, but he did
know.
it in a really awkward way. He had this habit of combining a really smart and actually very competent character who did good things in the book with a really dumb character who only made things worse for everyone. And the result was that mostly it was the character who made things worse for everyone that survived. Okay, Sarah Harding from The Lost World was this really competent and badass wildlife scientist whose first scene was like her studying hyenas in Africa, and she was basically the most badass character in the novel. She got thrown off a boat by the main antagonist partway through the novel on her way to the island because she was the last one to show up on the island. and she managed to not get dashed against the rocks and guide herself to safety on the island, which, considering where she got thrown off the boat, was quite an accomplishment. And then she, after linking up with the other characters, got like chased under a truck by the T-Rex, and and she was under the truck with the main bad guy. In order to survive, she ruthlessly kicks the main bad guy until his leg is sticking out from under the Jeep, and the T-Rex pulls him out and walks away. So she survived by using the main bad guy as a decoy so that the T-Rex would eat him and not her. That was the kind of character Sarah Harding was. In the movie, she's just kind of like, wow, starstruck, so dinosaurs, and does nothing of value for anyone except being the reason that they all had to go to the island to save someone. That was a completely different character in the book. And he was an idiot. He was a fucking asshole. You kind of wanted to see him get eaten by a dinosaur, which made it kind of disappointing when he was one of the ones who survived.
Oh, well, there's always just a random asshole that lives that you actually don't like.
Yeah, but this was a
These kinds
really
of things.
well-developed asshole, okay? Like,
But that just gives credence to what I was saying earlier, is that you can't compare the movie.
yeah,
to the
I know,
book
but it's
at
just
times,
like they
you know?
made some really weird decisions about which characters to combine with each other. I understand in Jurassic Park 1 that the lawyer they decided to write the lawyer as an asshole because that's a really easily identifiable movie trope, asshole lawyer. People like seeing lawyers get destroyed for some reason. But in the original novel, the lawyer was an okay guy. Like, he kind of wigged out and came very, very close to chickening out at certain points, but also did a decent job at, doing his part to make sure everyone survived. He went out with Muldoon and helped take down the T-Rex. Sort of.
With his bare hands.
No, not with his bare hands. He changed. He did something with the battery pack so that Muldoon could use his weapon.
I'm gonna wrap you up in so much litigation. That's what I call my arms.
But yeah, he wasn't the guy who ran out on the kids and left them in the car. That was someone else. That was the asshole executive, not the asshole lawyer.
All right, I'm going to go present evidence so hard at you, you won't even know what.
Oh, Ed Regis.
Actually, it's article number 725.b.
Now
that page is like 366
now I
pages
know
thick.
why I was thinking of Eddie from The Lost World, because the asshole executive's name was Ed Regis. He wasn't in the movie at all. They sort of merged him with Gennaro, and in the process disintegrated everything that was Gennaro and just left Ed Regis behind, except he's a lawyer now. The reason in the book, the reason Gennaro was there was because the lawyer firm that was representing the Japanese investors was really, really concerned by the amount of injury and death that seemed to be happening on this island. And Gennaro's boss was like, "You go to this island, and if there's even a hair out of place, you shut the fucker down." And Gennaro was on board with that idea. And he wasn't like instantly starstruck by the amount of money they could make with the park. He was interested, but he wasn't like completely out of his mind wanting to sell plastic lunch boxes, you know. So he was considerably more level-headed, which made it kind of a relief when he survived. Yes, the lawyer survived. He was not thrown into a restroom building by the T-Rex. Yeah.
Why are we trying to find the dog when, like, wasn't the world ending or something like that?
Side quest.
But, like, wasn't there, like, a revolution or something going
Side
on?
quest. No,
Here, boy.
just more Nebby were spawning.
Oh. So if that's not happening immediately, we have time for side quests.
Yes.
I do
We're playing with a
I
dog.
do prefer it when games keep their side quests mostly to parts of the game where it makes sense for the character to go on tangents like that. Like, I keep bringing up the Yakuza series, but it's generally pretty good about side quests being mostly restricted to certain points in the game. And after you beat the game, you can go back and do them all in premium adventure mode. So that's not a big deal. But like, if there's a part of the game where it doesn't make sense for your character to be able to do side quests, you can't do side quests. You know.
Cloud, the black meteor is falling to the earth. What should we do? Time for golden saucer.
There is a couple of other RPGs that do that. I'm drawing a blank at the moment though because it's one of those days. But generally, yes, I do appreciate it when they do that as well, especially just because it makes the whatever's going on feel more pressing because you can't just play with the dog for an hour. You know, like you actually have to do something about the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, though, on the other hand, it is a pretty cute dog, so...
It also has the other side effect, though, of enhancing the downtime in the story. Like, okay, in a book or in a movie, you can get a sense that time is passing and nothing serious is going on and the characters have time to relax during those periods where the characters have time to relax. In a video game, if you were to just move on with the story, it would feel like no time at all has passed, because generally in a video game you don't see the characters like stop and take a breather and sleep, because that would be a cutscene that wastes time for no plot progression, and that's a no-no in a video game.
That shit's expensive.
Yeah, but
Although there are, like, I mean, I guess it depends on the type of game, because I know that in many games, like, you heal by going to an inn or whatever. That is technically like a night's sleep.
oh yeah,
So you
but
are...
like a lot of players won't necessarily use those kind of things because they cost money, and why would you ever? But I mean, okay, if you're gonna also, sometimes you tend to overuse them to the point where you stop thinking of them as a narrative element at all. Like I'm playing Dragon Quest XI right now, and if I were to actually consciously think about the number of nights that my party of the Luminary and Eric spent camping outside the Kingsbarrow before actually going in, it would be a little ridiculous that Hendrik never caught up with them.
It's counted in the records menu, so you can check how many you did at any time.
We needed you 3 days
my
ago.
point is, Sir Hendrik must have been sitting out there watching me camp for nights on end, just gritting his teeth and growling because the game wouldn't let him progress until I got past the door of departure.
Sir, why don't you just go out there and tell them, no!
They have to come to the gate themselves.
So, like...
But, sir, they've been camping 10 feet outside for 3 days.
Oh, no,
now.
Hendrik wasn't in the Kingsbarrow. The Kingsbarrow had a monster infestation. But, like, after you finish Kingsbarrow and go toward the door of departure, that's when he's supposed to catch up with you. Except, it makes no sense that that's the only point where he catches up with you if you spend a week camping out outside the Kingsbarrow. So,
I mean, would you want to go and examine the middle of nowhere?
what?
Like, would you want to be searching around in the middle of nowhere for these guys?
Dude, okay,
Like
the campfire is in the middle of an open grass field. You should be able to see where the Luminary is camping from anywhere in that field.
That could be anybody. I think there's a line somewhere where they're like, let's search the town again.
Yeah, and
So they think you're in town.
well,
hiding
they
to do
should,
evil things.
by rights, they should be able to see you watching them from up there, but at the same time, all the people who were saying that were wearing the metal helmets, so their field of vision was probably very limited. Wait, why am I getting in depth about cutscenes in Dragon Quest? I had a point
Because
that I was
it's
originally trying to
It's
make.
a great game.
I had a
Dragon
point
Quest
that
I was gonna say,
for the Nintendo
I had a
Switch.
point that I
I
was
was going to say, Ted's excited because he can finally talk Dragon Quest.
my point, the point I was trying to make is that in video games, sleeping mechanics tend to be like so irregularly used and abused by the player that thinking of them consciously as narrative elements is a little unreliable. So having random episodic side content to do during downtime is more of a way to get across to the player that during this period of time, the actual characters have downtime and are able to get away from the plot for a little while. So it's at those points in the game where it feels like you get to experience a bit more of a slice of that character's life. Some games use this more frequently and effectively than others. It's basically the entire narrative structure of the Atelier series, for example. But, has the weird effect of enabling the player to relax along with the characters, if that makes sense. But you don't get quite that same effect if a game just lets you do side quests all the time, and your only motivation for doing the side quests is to make sure that all the side quests are done whenever they become available. At that point,
Nope, time to do every side quest in the game after the first mission. Time for mission 2. Recommended level 9. Character level 57.
You see,
But just
you
to be
just see
safe.
Xenoblade Chronicles standing in the corner, ashamed.
so like, okay, White Knight Chronicles. The second game allows you to take your single player party into the side quests, which are all meant to be multiplayer dungeons, right? But in the first game, you can only take your player created avatar into the multiplayer dungeons. I made a point to do them all, but since I am not a multiplayer person at all and didn't want to wait, most of the time when I did them, I just did them solo and soldiered through, and there was like only 2 quests where I absolutely could not do that. So by the end of the game, my single-player party members, all the main characters that the story was actually about, were like at level 50 or something. My avatar was level 80, and she was just curb stomping everything, and the main characters had nothing to do.
Well, fuck.
Which was fitting because
Let's have you do it.
Because,
then.
like, at the end of White Knight Chronicles 2, everyone gets their giant knight transformation powers taken away, except for your main character, who has the ability to unlock an optional, like, prototype knight transformation that none of the other characters can access. And the camera zooms in on your main character's face. It's like, yeah, at last, the avatar is the main character. It's your time to shine, player. Do it. Transform. You know you want to. And it's like, why is this special? I've been curb stomping everything since the start of the game. The main characters haven't been doing shit. It was interesting. Why did I segue into that? That was random. I'm sorry. That had nothing to do with
You
what I
kept
was
the park
originally
going
saying.
for almost the entirety of it.
How dare you get onto a tangent, Lewis?
What?
Do you know what kind of reputation this?
Back to what's going on
commentary
screen.
team-
What the hell is that?
We're
playing
trying to
fetch.
Frisbee.
frisbee. Is this Wii Sports Resort?
No.
Oh man, you could play fetch with the dog in Wii Sports Resort.
No, like, physically, within the universe, what is the glowing cube thing?
Where
It's
you're
just,
supposed
it's
to
just,
throw
it's just the
a-
marker where you're supposed
It's just
to
a
throw it.
waymark where you're supposed to throw the Frisbee.
Oh, okay, so they can't...
It doesn't actually exist.
No, Lewis is right. We should make a theory video about this. What is the true meaning behind the waymark in Gravity Rush 2?
No, I mean, I became aware of the Frisbee minigame, like, just... Wait, what? It landed in the
What
boundary.
kind of
Where am
minigame?
I? How did I get here?
It landed in the boundary, though. Why didn't Zoe like it?
Because it's a dog and they're brats.
But that one counted.
Okay, I don't get it. That one landed, like, slightly even further outside. There's a doggy joy meter.
Yes. It's the best meter in all
This-
video games because all doggies deserve to have
This
joy.
is...
Not every dog. Those little yappy dogs that.
Yeah, Lewis's house.
No, no.
You overshot
Look,
it.
Look,
Yes.
you know the dog I'm talking about. The one with the person who keeps it in their pocketbook, which has like
Yeah,
little
the
bows in it
chihuahuas.
that will like pee on stuff, and they're like, "Oh no, my sweetums would never do that." And yeah, no,
Sweetums doesn't defecate.
yeah, that dog, no, that dog does not deserve. Actually, no, that dog does deserve joy, the joy of not having that owner.
My point is these kind of lighthearted shenanigans, This feels like cat relaxing. Even if it is a dumb side quest that probably has a stressful reason for happening in the first place.
And you say all dogs deserve joy. I don't know. Cujo gives me a different vibe.
Cujo was rabid, okay? Cujo was a tragedy.
Yeah, I know, but still, like post rabbit infection, I don't want to see any doggy joy meter go up.
Well, I mean, at that point, the dog's just kind of like needs to be taken behind the shed and old Yellard. There's really nothing else for it, but like it was sad that Cujo got infected because
What infected Cujo? It's been so long since
I don't
watched
remember,
it.
and it was probably different in the movie than the book because Stephen King's movies tend to be very
Yeah.
different.
It was Eddie. and the lawyer.
No, I mean, like, Stephen King. Okay, whenever Stephen King's movies and shows are actually loyal to his books, they're terrible because his books have terrible structure for movies and shows. But like, I'm not sure how different Cujo was from the book. It might be like The Shining, or it might be something like Needful Things, where the premise is basically the same and it just has a different ending. I'm not really sure. So I couldn't tell you if it's the same in the movie as it is in the book, and I'm not actually sure what it was in the book in the first place because I haven't gotten around to Cujo yet. I just know the premise. But Cujo was apparently like a really sweet dog before he went rabid. So
Is this like a Stephen King weird supernatural stuff kind of?
No,
book, or-
No,
Cujo was
it's actually a really down to earth.
yeah, Cujo was just a rabid dog, and someone was trapped in a car by the rabid dog. It's one of those cases where the book is actually about a very small situation. The only book that I've read of his that does that is Gerald's Game, where the entire novel is about this woman who was doing sexy roleplay things with her husband. He took it too far. She kicked him in self-defense and accidentally broke his neck, so she wound up stuck handcuffed to a bed in a cabin in the woods and couldn't get out. And there was a creepy stalker guy who just sort of stood in the room and watched her, and then she escaped, and that's the entire novel. And there were a lot of flashbacks to her traumatic childhood along the way. But it was essentially her in a room.
That's the down to earth one.
That's one of the down to earth ones. Yes, it doesn't involve any. It doesn't involve any supernatural stuff. It's just a bad situation that someone got stuck in, and it led to a lot of psychological horror, and that's how that goes. It wasn't a very long book.
This was the part about making a dog happy. We'll see what shenanigans Cat gets into next time.